Welcome back to the 8 points. So today, from the Agents of Chaos Warcry book, we're having a look at the Hedonites of Slaanesh. Now this is a new warband. So previously, before today, you would only have been able to field Hell Reavers or Hell Striders, which come from the same box, from this warband. As everything else goes on pre-order today, actually, when this video is uploaded, that is the day when this lot will be up for pre-order. Now they are a strong warband, to be fair, they are very good. I would say up front, if you're going to buy models just for a Warcry warband, I would possibly stay away from this particular warband, just because if cost is prohibitive to you, and it is to most of us, it's going to be very expensive to put together a good warband just from what we've got here. So, and if you are going to do it on a lesser budget, it's going to be very one-dimensional. Now, the Hedonites of Slaanesh are Epicureans and revelers of the foulest kind. Their warbands are populated by cruel demons and frenzied mortals. They delight in spreading depravity wherever they tread. And the ones we're looking at today, so these are the more kind of human-based ones. There is a separate warband for Demons of Slaanesh. Now, if you have got Demons of Slaanesh, they actually already include the Hell Reaver and Hell Striders in here. So if you've already got those, you've got a bit of a head start on this warband anyway. So in general, they are a more or less a strength 3, toughness 3 kind of warband for their lower models, and 4s and 4s for the tougher ones. So from the separate leaders that we've got, and we've got quite a few. So if we were to look at the new boxes that have gone on pre-order today, we've obviously got the Shard Speaker and the Lord of Pain. They're available on their own. We've got the Bliss Barb Archers. Now those, as well as being ranged combat, are actually quite good movement for this warband. They're all a movement of 5, but we'll get onto those in a minute. We have the Slangor Slakehorn, which comes from the Fiend Bloods box. So we've got the Slangor Slakehorn. He is a leader, and then we get 2 other Fiend Bloods. We have the Slickblade Hunter Seeker and the Bliss Barb Seeker High Tempter. Now those 2 different types of mounted guys, they both come from the same box. So you could buy 1 box of those and switch between, building them in different styles. We also get a Myrmidesh Painmaster and a Sybarites Ego Pomp. So those again are both built from the same kit. And then all of the different parts of those kits are available here. So there's no Sigvald the Magnificent. There's obviously no Orskaloin, that great big chariot looking thing. So this is back to the bare bones pretty much. So broadly, they are fairly hard hitting. So if you look at, if I was to kind of sum up between this lot in terms of the damage they do, they're all kind of between a 2 and 5 damage, depending if you get crits or not. So what I'll do is I'll go through each individual one by one, and then at the end I will give you what I am going to build up as a warband for this. So again, because cost is prohibitive, I would only really look at this as a viable option for Warcry if you are collecting this for Age of Sigmar as well. So that obviously makes a difference to how you build your different boxes and that kind of thing. For example, you're not going to build, you're not going to buy a box of Myrmidesh Painbringers and Sybarites Twin Souls because they're both in the same box. You're not going to start making some Painbringers and some Twin Souls from that same box, because then you're not going to be able to use them properly in Age of Sigmar. So there are some decisions to be made. Other warbands, which are a little bit cheaper and that kind of thing, you can buy those boxes and separate the different models from 2 different types and build what you want for Warcry. But I think for cost-wise, so for example, these ones, the Painbringers, the Twin Souls, it's £36.50 for a box of those. And if I'm going to spend that amount of money, I want to be able to use them in both Warcry and Age of Sigmar. So I'd have to choose between the 2, which I would like. that's enough waffling, so let's get on with the actual warbands themselves. So we'll start with the various abilities. So fighter abilities, so what have we got? We've got a double unrivaled velocity, which can be used by any model in the range. At half the value of this ability, rounding up to the move characteristic of this fighter for the next move action they make. So that's pretty straightforward, so that can assist in movement. Now as a double, that's actually very good. The warband itself isn't particularly fast moving, and they're a mixture of mainly 4s and 5s. The mounted guys are actually a movement of 10, which is very, very good, and the Fiend Bloods are a movement of 6. So those are all very good, but the rest of them in general aren't particularly great. In fact, these heavier models, so the Painbringers and the Twin Souls, they're only a movement of 4. We've got a triple, Dance of the Wailing Blade. Add 1 to the damage points allocated by each hit and critical hit from attack actions made by this fighter. This activation, that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. Okay, so this is available to the likes of a Myrmidesh Painmaster. So he rolls 4 dice in attack, which is good, and he's actually a strength 4, which isn't too bad either. That's actually quite good. So he is going to benefit from something like this, because there's a good chance that whoever he's going to be attacking, he's going to be hitting on 3s. So that's good. It's actually not available to that many models, to be fair. In fact, it is just the Myrmidesh Painbringers and the Painmaster, the leader of that group, that it can be used for. Next, the triple is Slaves to Impulse. A fighter can use this ability only if there's a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of them. This fighter makes a bonus move action and can finish closer to the closest visible enemy fighter than they were at the start of that move action. So that's good for getting into combat. So if you can see something that is fairly close to you, you can draw yourself in. Now that's basically for these guys with a movement of kind of 4 or 5 or less. So it is available to the Fiend Bloods, who have a 6 movement anyway. It's only available to them. Okay, Impaling Strike. This is another triple. Until the end of this fighter's activation, the next time this fighter finishes a move action within 1 inch of an enemy fighter, pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter. Allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of this ability. So that's very good. So just a movement, as long as you go within 1 inch, you can deal the value of this ability. So if you've got a triple 6, you can do 6 damage. That's very good. So who can do this? So we've got the Hellreavers. We've got the Slickblade Hunter Seekers, Hellstriders, Slickblade Seekers, and that's it. So yeah, for the mounted guys, that's a really good attack. Right, triple Volley of Tearing Blades. Add half the value of this ability, rounding up to the attack characteristics of the next attack action. So this is for fighters that are more than 3 inches away. So this is going to stick to our Bliss Barb Archers. Got one leader there, the High Tempter. We don't have any other ranged combat. We do with the Shard Speaker, but Shard Speaker hasn't got this ability. Yeah, so that's all of the Bliss Barb Archer models that get that one. Oh, right, okay, so the Bliss Barb Seeker gets it, which is a mounted unit, so that's very cool as well. Okay, and then we've got the quad, Ego-Driven Excess. This fighter can make a bonus move action or a bonus attack action. In addition, each time a fighter is taken down by an attack action made by this fighter, this activation, this fighter can make a further bonus move action or bonus attack action. That's very good. So this fighter could effectively just kind of go man to man as long as he's within distance and just start really dealing some good damage and taking some fighters out of the game if you've got some lower health models. So for example, that's available to the Sybarites Ego Pomp. And the Twin Soul models. Very good. Okay, leader abilities. Violence and Excess. This is a double. Fighter can use this ability only if an enemy fighter has been taken down by attack action. So they can make a bonus move or bonus attack. So that's very good. So if your leader takes someone's down on a double, they can make a bonus move or bonus attack. So that's very cool. Who have we got here? So that can be used by any of the leaders. Very cool. Then we've got for a triple, tendrils of unnatural smoke. Until the end of this battle round, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic to a minimum of 1 of attack actions made by an enemy fighter while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. So they can reduce attacks down to 1 for anything within 6 inches. That's very good. So that's available to the Shard Speaker. And then finally, we've got Paragon of Depravity. Until the end of the battle round, add the value of this ability to the strength characteristic of attack actions that have a range characteristic of 3 or less made by friendly fighters while they're within 6 inches of this fighter. So a real good strength boost. So the Lord of Pain gets that, just the Lord of Pain. So yeah, very cool. So there's obviously some good weighting between the Shard Speaker and the Lord of Pain to choose as your kind of core leaders, because they get some abilities that not everyone else does. But having said that, you know, there's no surprise for that, because, you know, from a money making perspective for GW, this is just an extra single model you're going to buy. So these are available £18. Now, if you're going to buy any of this stuff and you use Element Games, if you wouldn't mind using the link in the description, it will give you all your normal discounts and that kind of thing, but it will give me a bit of a kickback. So if you wouldn't mind using that, if you use Element Games, I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, so that's all of the abilities done. So let's look through these guys one by one, and then I'll get on to what my list is going to be. So the Shard Speaker, I think, is a really good, viable option for a leader here. So movement is only 4, and toughness is only 3, but there's 22 wounds, which isn't bad for a 170-point leader. Those abilities have got are quite good, particularly the tendrils of unnatural smoke, which is good. So if he's going to be faced with any attacks, the attacks are going to be less than they would be if he uses that triple. In terms of damage, 3 and 6 damage on a 3 to 7 range is good, although there's only 2 attacks there. Strength 3 is, you know, it's bog standard for kind of low level guys, but I still think it's quite good. And his melee attack isn't that bad either. 2-inch range, 3 attacks on a strength of 3 doing 1 and 4 damage for crits. So I like the Shard Speaker. He's got decent range combat, especially on that 3 or 6 damage. Wounds wise, he's not that great, 22, but you know, he could be a lot worse. If you look at, for example, the Lord of Pain, which is a much more expensive model, it's 220 points. It's 50 points more, but there's only an extra 3 wounds. He does have a toughness of 4 though. So let's move on. So the Lord of Pain, actually 2-inch range, 4 attacks on a strength 5. So that's very, very tough. So justifying that 50 points difference from the Shard Speaker actually. Moving up, we've got the Hell Reaver with Claw Spear. So again, this is a pre-existing model to the range before all of the rest, which have gone on pre-order today. And those models are also available in the Demons of Slaanesh warbands as well. So if you've already got Demons of Slaanesh, there's a good chance you've already got these models, which is good. 2-inch attack, 4 attacks, which is great. Strength 4 doing 2 and 4 damage, 235 points. So the reason for that is 10-inch movement, which is very good, and 30 wounds. So very good there as well. Moving on to the Bliss Barb Archer High Tempter. So only 130 points. This is actually the cheapest leader we'll get in the entire warband, but there's only 16 damage that it will take. So if you've got a warband, or sorry, if you've got a scenario where it's where the cards are telling you need to take down the leader, you don't really want the Bliss Barb Archer in your warband. But you won't know that until you start playing. So yeah, it's a bit of a tough one to go with. Maybe if you've got specific things that you want to do with the rest of your warband, that might force you to take a cheaper leader. So 3 to 15-inch range with 3 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 4 damage, which isn't particularly great. She has got a melee, it's a 1-inch range, 3 attacks on strength 3 doing 1 and 3 damage. So yeah, obviously a big step down from what we've seen before. However, 5-inch movement is pretty good. And at 130 points is, yeah, it's 50 points more than a standard archer, but the stats wise, there's not a great deal of difference. So potentially, if you want to take an extra ally in with you, maybe use that for the extra distance in the range combat. But yeah, not a lot going for it, to be fair. Okay, the Slangor Slakehorn. So this is one of the Fiend Bloods. 225 cost, 30 wounds, toughness 4, and a 6-inch movement. So all of this is looking very good. 1-inch range, doing 4 attacks on strength 4, doing 3 and 5 damage. So 3 and 5 damage, also very, very good. So we've got another mounted unit, the Slick Blade Hunter Seeker. 240 points, which is slightly more than the Hellreaver was. 10-inch movement again. Toughness 4, 35 wounds. So this is our most wounds yet that we've seen for a leader. 2-inch range as well with that spear. 4 attacks on a strength 3 doing 2 and 4 damage. So basically all of the good attributes of the Hellreaver, but you're paying an extra 5 points for 5 extra toughness, which I think is very good. So that for me would just stop me from using that Hellreaver. Unless I had a real conundrum what I was going to do with 5 points out of my 1,000, I would have to go for the Hunter Seeker every time just for that extra 5 wounds, just for 5 points. Okay, Blissbarb Seeker High Tempter. So 20 points less, but the same amount of points actually, same 35 points, which is good. Only difference is toughness 3, which isn't, you know, which is a big difference. That's the difference for that number of points. That 20 points difference comes out in that toughness 3. 10-inch movement again, which is good. Right, okay, so what can we do with the bow and arrow? 3 to 15-inch range, 3 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 4 damage. That's okay, that's not bad. Also has a 1-inch range. Looks like it's got a dagger or something like that. Toughness 3, 3 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 3 damage. So not particularly great from this model here. It's 20 points less than the Hunter Seeker. It's got 1 less toughness. It does less damage, although it does have that ranged combat. So yeah, interesting. Okay, the last two, so the Myrmidesh Painmaster and the Sybarites Ego Pomp. Again, these both come from the same box. What have we got? Let's do a direct comparison. So we've got the same amount of wounds at 25. The Myrmidesh Painmaster has got a toughness 5 versus the Sybarites toughness of 4. They both move 4. Right, that's right. Okay, so in terms of attacks, the Painmaster's got a 1-inch range, whereas the Sybarites Ego Pomp has got a 2-inch range. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. That extra inch range makes all the difference. It allows this fight to kind of just stand back and just, where we've got like a little melee skirmish with a few different models in there, it just allows them to just stand just that little bit back and just start dealing damage. Both strength 4. Now the Ego Pomp has got strength. They both do 4. They both have 4 attacks. But here's the crux for me. The Sybarites allows you can stand back just slightly on that 2-inch range, and he's actually got a higher strength. He's got strength 5 instead of strength 4. So that for me, if we get him into the right sort of little battle there, it's actually much better than the Painmaster. If he's face-to-face combat and he's getting hit in the face every time your opponent is, then it's much of a muchness. And obviously on that slightly reduced toughness, he's going to get much more damage facing his way. But the combination of that extra inch range and that extra 1 toughness, that extra 1 strength, I think is a big boon for that guy. So although it's 200 points, so 5 points less than the Painmaster, that guy would definitely go into my warband. Okay, right. So that's all the leaders done. So we've got some very good leaders here. I'll tell you now that going into my warband is going to be the Shard Speaker. Reduced points, good combat there, 3 to 6 damage on the ranged combat. And I like the ability as well, that Tendrils of Unnatural Smoke. So of all of the leaders, this is the guy that's going in. And I can also say that for the rest of the warband, I'm not going to take any of these other guys as an ally. So my leader is going to be the Shard Speaker. Okay, so moving on. So let's have a look. Let's start with the Hellstriders. So again, these are the guys that are also available to the Demons of Slaanesh. So they are very, very similar actually. The main difference is that the Claw Spear, the Hellstrider with Claw Spear, has the Impaling Strike ability, whereas the Hellstrider with Hell Scourge doesn't. But there's a bit of a payback. So they've both got 20 wounds. They've both got a toughness of 4. They both do 10-inch range. Sorry, they both do 10-inch movement. So those core bits there, very good. Now, the difference between these, they cost the same. Obviously, one's got an ability and the other one hasn't. The difference is that the Hell Scourge, who doesn't have the ability, has got a 3-inch range and attack against a 2-inch range with the Claw Spear. He has got 4 attacks against 3 with the Claw Spear. They're both toughness 3. Now, the Claw Spear does 1 and 4 damage, whereas the Hell Scourge does 1 and 3 damage. So for me, it more than balances each other out. They cost the same, but the difference in these stats make them much of a muchness for me, so pretty good. Okay, next we've got the Bliss Barb Archers. Now, obviously, if you buy Bliss Barb Archers, you get 10 in a box. So there's plenty. You could field 800 points of Bliss Barb Archers just from that box. Now, here's the rub though. They've only got 8 wounds. Movement is 5, which is good. But they've also only got a toughness of 3, which ain't great at all. So what they like in attack. So they've got the bow and arrow, 3 to 15-inch range, only 2 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 3 damage. That for me ain't great either. They're just not going to get through a great deal of armor really. They're not going to make the most of almost any of those attacks. They've also got a melee range. They've also got a melee combat, which is a 1 and 3 damage as well. So yeah, I'm disregarding the Bliss Barb Archers. They're too weak. They've got movement going for them, which is good, and they're cheap, but they're too weak to do much. Okay, Slangor Fiend Bloods, and I can tell you that 2 of these are going to make it into my warband. So they've got a 6-inch movement, which is good. They've got a toughness 4, which is good, and they've got 20 wounds, which is very good. They've got a 1-inch range and they do 4. And they've got 4 attacks on a strength 4 doing 2 and 5 damage. So these guys are real good heavy hitters. So they've got good movement. They can get into that battle quick, and they've got, you know, good strength and a good amount of attacks to start dealing damage pretty quickly. Now we've got Slick Blade Seekers, and I can tell you that these make it into my warband as well. So again, they've also got 20 wounds. They've also got a toughness of 4, but they've got a movement of 10 inches, which is very cool. They're slightly more expensive than the Fiend Bloods, but let's see what they can do in attack. 2-inch range, 3 attacks on a strength 3, doing 2 and 4 damage. They also have the Impaling Strike ability, which is good. Sorry, I forgot to say the Fiend Bloods also have the Slaves to Impulse ability as well. Okay, next up we've got the Bliss Barb Seekers, which are the mounted versions of the Slick Blade Seekers, again made from the same box. So they are slightly cheaper. They've got 25 wounds, which is good, but they've got a toughness of 3, which is less than the Seekers. 10 10-inch movement again. Right, so they have got a ranged combat, 3 to 15 inches. So 2 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 3 damage. So again, against the kind of tougher units that you face, it's going to be difficult to get through and do anything there. They also have an up close 1-inch range attack, the melee. 3 attacks doing 3 attacks on a strength 3 doing 1 and 3 damage. So again, they are kind of mirroring a little bit the Stick Blade Seeker. The reason I like the Stick Blade more though is that they've got that extra range in melee attack, and they do that little bit more damage, 2 and 4 against 1 and 3. I also prefer their ability against the Bliss Barb Seekers, which is the Tearing Blades. Okay, so moving up to the Myrmidon Painbringer. And I've got one of these in my warband as well. And the reason is 15 wounds, which isn't great, but I do have a 5 toughness. So it's going to be difficult to break through and be able to hurt these guys. 4-inch movement, which again is pretty poor. But here we go, like in the attack, they've got 4 attacks, strength 3, which ain't great, but 2 and 4 damage as well. So this is pretty good for me. I like this. If we balance that, so this is the only Myrmidon model that makes it into it. So if you buy a box of Myrmidon, you can only get this one type of fighter out of it. Whereas if you go for Twin Souls, which I won't be, but if you do go for Twin Souls, there's 3 different types that you can make out of it. So we've got the Sybarites Twin Souls with Excruciator Lash. That's a 3-inch range, strength 4, toughness 3, doing 1 and 4 damage. But it's 4-inch movement, only 4 toughness and only 15 wounds. So again, the big balance between there is the number of wounds versus the toughness. So it's going to be easier to get through and hit this Twin Soul than it is the Painbringer. And that is the same for the last 2 models we're going to look at, the last 2 Twin Souls. So they both have 15 wounds and they both have 4 toughness. 4-inch movement, but let's check the rest of the abilities. Sorry, let's check the rest of it. So they've both got a 1-inch attack. The Merciless Blades does 4 attacks on a strength 4, doing 2 and 4 damage. Whereas the Twin Soul with Sinful Cleaver has got 3 attacks on a strength 5, so he's going to be getting through quite a lot, doing 2 and 4 damage. I might actually just switch. So when I get these, I'll probably build the Painbringer and also build the Twin Soul out of that box, because there's some good difference, some good balance between these two. But I still like the Painbringer. Although these guys do have the ego-driven excess attack. Sorry, ability, which is very, very strong. Okay, so to sum up, I'm going for a Shard Speaker, it's 170 points. 2 Fiend Bloods, they're 165 each. 2 Sick Blade Seekers at 180 each. And the Myrmidon Painbringer at 140. So that's my 1,000 points warband. The optional extras I will consider is out of this box, I'll build at least one of these Twin Soul with Sinful Cleavers, because there's some good strength and damage to be dealt there. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to sidestep the Bliss Barb Archers, because I don't see there being enough in there. See, when I think about range, I think about movement and I think about attacks. Now, the Bliss Barb Archers' attacks just aren't strong enough for me to think that they're going to get through a lot of the time, although they are cheap. So I'm much more likely to rely on the movement to get into battle as I am for these guys sitting on the outskirts. So, I mean, you could field a ton of these and just kind of have them. With that 5-inch movement, there's a good chance that they could just move around the board, staying out of the battle and just start pinging arrows into those fights. So possibly one to consider. But there you go, guys. I think this is a really strong warband. If you balance it right, and I'm not even sure that I balanced it right with what I've got with the Shard Speaker. It's pretty weak, but again, there's some good strength in the rest of the warband. And it's only a 6 model warband as well, but most of those have got good wounds as well. So yeah, I think it's a really cool warband. What I might do is I might come back and re-review after playing a few games if you guys want that. So if you guys want me to do that, let me know in the comments and I will come back and re-review after a few games. Now, moving on from this, something I've been intending to do for a long time is start going through these books and reviewing the individual warbands. So I've been writing up a tiered list, which got completely ruined when these books came out because I'd almost finished them and all of a sudden every warband had massively changed. But I'm working on that, so that will probably kick off very, very soon. I include another, when I look at the tiered list, I'll include the Hedonites of Slaanesh in that. Now these guys aren't top tier by any realm of the imagination, but they're very good. They're you know, maybe one below, but broadly good. And the big thing for these is that most of what's good about them comes out in the individual stats. These abilities are okay, but they're not the best at all. So, and the other thing is that these abilities are very, very wide apart when it comes to who can do what. Generally in other warbands, you get a bit more doubling up and that kind of thing, whereas these abilities are a little bit more kind of difficult to come by. But there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. If you want any more information on this or anything like that, let me know. If you did enjoy this video, subscribe. And if you are looking forward to the Cursed City, I've also got a Facebook group going on for that. There's a link in the description on this YouTube video. So if you look at that, you'll be able to join me over there as well and get involved in a discussion. So thanks for watching. Much appreciated. I'll catch you later.